Alrighty, well, we'll get started. Like I mentioned, my name is Joanna Ruiz, and I am the operations manager for Vienna International. And I'm so excited to bring these wonderful people together to share their experience and insight with the DS standard keys. So I'll start off by announcing Mr. Joe DeFio. He is the Vice President of Hailun USA, and he has a little bit to share with us. So go ahead, Joe.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. Greetings from Highland USA and myself, Joe DeFio. A few years ago, I was presented something that would add a whole new dimension to our company, our dealers, and to the end consumer. It was an opportunity really to help make a needed change in the piano world and have fun doing it, because if we're not having fun, it's not quite worth it, is it? Anyhow, the thing I saw at that NAMM show, and those of you who don't know what the NAMM show is, it used to be called the National Association of Music Merchants, but they just made it NAMM for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. The thing that I saw there was PASC and the DS standard. The concept has been around for many, many, many years, but they just were kind of, bumping into things that would stop them from getting the traction they needed to get it out in front of the people, because this is a necessary product as far as I can see. Even though their time was here, it's very difficult to reach masses without a good platform to do it. We have that platform. After looking real closely at the idea, I decided, along with other people in the company, Joanna included, to become the first and only major piano maker to embrace, promote, and make available pianos with the DS system installed to the mass market. Little heads up, all the other companies had 30 years to come to the rescue of the PASC system. In many cases, your piano companies are slow to react to new things because it doesn't make them a lot of money out front. One thing about Hailun is that we are on a cutting edge, and if we see something that might take years to promote, well, we're still in on the deal. And that's what it's all about with the PASC system. We're now reaching out worldwide with Highland products equipped with the system. Now, in a joint effort with PASC, the PASC Foundation, we are making really strides to get where we need to be for awareness and easy availability to all who need our products. And notice I said need, not want. I myself have, there you go, have small hands. And I have been very, very jealous of some of my larger friends who could play some jazz chords that I couldn't even consider unless I use an extension of one of my fingers. So this kind of is a necessity for a lot of people. Now, the whole thing in a nutshell is basically this. We are going to be there, make available products, work along with the foundation, and get this very needed DS standard out in front of the public and available to the public. That's it. I hope you'll find and I know you will find the presentations today very, very interesting. And I would like to thank you very much all for joining us today. And again, don't forget that this will be available after the fact in a recorded form. So after enjoying this presentation, you might want to share it with your friends. Anyhow, thank you very much again. And I'm going to turn you over to the store manager of the piano place in Michigan, Grant Wallach, who is going to go to the next part of the presentation. Thank you. Go ahead, Grant.
Well, hello and good afternoon to all. I doubt I know everybody that is present, but I welcome you to stop in and visit. I would love to meet all of you. Today, I have the distinct honor of introducing two women, and they're both very special. They're both acclaimed pianists and acclaimed teachers. And they have great accolades from, I've heard from the great to Her Highness. And they have great sense of humor. So I had to introduce that. The first of the two is Linda Gould, who has been teaching for over 40 years, 30 of which she has been doing on a slim keyed keyboard. So she's very familiar with this facet of pianos. And like me, she's been in the retail business too, so she knows all about pianos as well. She has played and taught many people and took lessons from many people. So we're very pleased to have her with us. And in addition, we actually have two great people. We have Barbara Lister-Sink, who is director and she's at the School of Music director and professor of piano at Salem College. And she's also been an acclaimed award-winning pianist and a great teacher who is very familiar with this product. And so at this point, I would like to turn the program over, I think first to Linda Gould, and we all look forward to hearing from both of them. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Grant. It's been a pleasure to meet you today, and thank you, Joe, for what you are doing. It is so appreciated because, as Grant said, I've been doing this for 30 years, all on my own, my little piano, and then PASC came about, and there's a few of us sprinkled all over the world, and this is finally starting to get some real serious interest, and its time is way past due. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience. Small-handed pianist, grew up performing concertos with youth orchestras, winning competitions, and didn't matter when I was a child because we all kind of had small hands struggling with these big keys. It was like wearing men's grown-up shoes. You know, we started off right, but that was all there was. Pianos are big, heavy objects. And then suddenly I watched all my male competitors, friends, passing me. And I didn't realize at the time what an advantage it was as they grew into these large feet and large hands, how much that affected playing. And I just thought, you know, I did get my university degree. I entered some international competitions, but I wound up with my arm in a cast for 3 years, basically. I had a huge performance injury, and it was all mystifying. And I went back to a discussion with a colleague of mine. We sort of laughed in second year university over, wouldn't it be great if the keys were smaller? That's the only way. We can't take our hand off and get a new hand, but we could make the keys smaller, and we sort of laughed about it. Well, fast forward in mid-1990s, I met David Steinbuehler, and he made for me the very first commercial narrow key keyboard that I slid into my grand. We didn't have a beautiful company like Hailun where you could buy the piano that way. I didn't know what I was getting into. I was so curious. I had to do this. What the surprises were was, number one, it did not affect my ability to play large keys at all. As a matter of fact, the big surprise was it made me more accurate. As I practiced on my narrow keys, and it took me a week to get used to them. You know, the first day I was fine, but after a week I was really fine. But then I could just go back. I'm talking playing stride like Maple Leaf Rag or Chopin Fantasy Impromptu, all the pieces. The transition was not a problem. And I've got a little story to tell you how I found that out. So for 6 months, I was taking a sabbatical from teaching, and I was in the piano store business, but all I did was play my keys. They were my new toy, my new shiny toy. I played for 6 months, I played my little keys, just got into them. And then I got a phone call. A fellow from New York, famous flute player, was coming out with his accompanist performing at the university. And would I be able to accompany him for a Brazilian improvisational piece? Because his accompanist just liked to read notes. And sure. So he came to my place. We rehearsed, and he said, "This is great." I went, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome. Thank you very much." Then I walked onto the stage the next day at the University Center, big, beautiful Steinway grand piano. And I sat down and I looked at the keys and I went, "Oh," and I hadn't played large keys for 6 months. I looked at him, he picked up his flute, away he went, I dived in, and the next thing I remember was applause. There was no transition. I just played them because we feel the black keys. We don't memorize this position. So anyway, fast forward, I got to, because we had a piano moving truck, I got to perform Gershwin Rhapsody with the orchestra here. I got to perform on it, and I got the feeling of the power. And I knew why my male compatriots were able to play better than me, because they had the hands that when we land on those big chords, we can shock absorb into the key, and we have this power. We can move our whole body, which I know Barbara will talk about. So it's became a necessity, not just a luxury. Fast forward, I have in my studio a regular size piano and my narrow key pianos. And when my students come, they choose. I want to play the regular size, so I will do on the little keys. They want to play the little keys, I will play on the big keys. And 2 of my students have bought pianos, acoustic pianos with narrow keys. And I have a 3rd student that is seriously looking at getting a Hailun piano in the next 6 months. I told Joe, so I said, keep an eye open for her. And they love it. They absolutely love it. So I know as teachers, you have a lot of questions. You know, how will they do exams? How will we do performances? All very practical things, but something has to come first. And the most important thing I feel as a teacher is that my students play an instrument that suits their hand. So they develop good muscles, not performance injuries, and they develop good habits. And then the world will come. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first? Little keys all over the world, or in our teaching studios? As teachers, we have a huge influence over the pianos that our students buy. I know, because when I had a piano store, they rarely listened to me. Well, my teacher said, buy this. Okay. So I'm thrilled that you teachers are open to this, and that you, I hope you get to try it. Barbara has these keys too. We all walk around with these, but this is, how do I do this? There we go. So you can see, if I got this up right, you can see where the octave C is on the regular size, and you can see where the octave C is on the narrow keys. And for my hand, it is the difference between wearing comfortable shoes and wearing shoes that are just not comfortable. They're big and I trip over things. And I just feel like this is so right. I'm not sure where I am on the clock. I know Joanna said to talk for about 10 minutes so I can tell lots of stories, but I just wanted to check in with you and see where I'm at. I'm doing good. Okay, how many more minutes would you like me to chat?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Any other mention? I know we wanted to also share about your daughter, so that would be.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I had my daughter. She now is all grown up, but when she took her grade 9 piano, I think she was 14. She was going through that growth spurt. And suddenly, I was her teacher. I kept trying to give her to other teachers, and she kept coming back to me. So we did have a synergy. She went and got her all the way to her ARCT. She's a wonderful pianist. But at age 14, my daughter said, "Mom, my wrist hurts." And I mean, I had done everything right, I thought, but she was going through this growth spurt, and the tendons, everything is just being stretched. And I said, "You've got to start practicing exclusively on my narrow keys." I'd had them for about 2 years at this time. She said, "But Mom, I want to do my grade 9 exam." And I said, "Just practice on it and see." And sure enough, a week of practice, all pain was gone. Everything was fine again. She loving piano. I think it was Dan Coates' version of Colors of the Wind was the one that was really getting her. She loved the piece, but it was stretchy. So I called up the examination board and I said, "My daughter wants to take her exam on these narrow keys." Well, I might as well have been talking gibberish. They laughed at me, and I was persistent for about a year. And finally, the head of the examination board became a cellist. He said, "Well, I didn't start playing on an adult cello. Why would you expect Pianist the same. If she's got the ability to play on narrow keys, it's got 88 keys, it's got the same black notes in the same place. Why can't she? So it took a year, but she did take her grade 9 RCM exam on the narrow keys. I did have to say that she couldn't have any kind of advantage if she won a medal or anything like that, that it was too new, and that was all fine. We were just in. She did get first class honors, high first class honors. She did a great job, and she's a pianist to this day, I believe, because of that. She could have dropped out. And so the examination boards, fast forward 20 years, are now much more open to differences in pianos. So that is one big tick that came away. Yes, your students will be able to take exams on narrow keys. So I'm looking forward to the question and answer. That's always my favorite spot. I've talked to a lot of teachers, and I'm used to your concerns, but each of your own concerns are very important. Even if I've heard them before, it's whether they are your concern or not. And I want to finish off what I'm saying. Joe mentioned the fun word. And yes, piano, learning to play the piano is serious business. It's hard work. Why not make it fun? Why does it have to have a possible element of pain in there when that's not needed? If you are playing an instrument that fits your hand, you're having so much fun. And I can just say that from being 30 years in front of a narrow key. This morning I was playing Oscar Peterson's Georgia with tenths in the left hand. And to this day, when I plunk down a tenth and I can barely reach an octave on regular keys, I just chuckle. It's just so good.
If there is one, we'll have, of course, the question and answer period. But I'd just like you to take a few seconds, if you would, Linda, to mention, because we're talking about younger people, but I'm going to guess there's a huge advantage for older, much older people to stop their injuries too, and senior citizens who playing all their life. If you just take a couple minutes to expound on that, because we're talking about injuries.
Absolutely, Joe. Okay. Yeah. And primarily most of my students are adult students. I have two 12-year-olds, but everybody else is in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And you're right. As we age, arthritis often takes its toll. And I have a couple of quite advanced pianists who cannot play as they used to. They don't have that stretch, but they love the fact that they can fit into these keys. And even if they're a man's hand, my husband's also a pianist, and he has big, fat, chunky fingers, and he can play my narrow keys without issue. He slides in between the black keys, and he just he chuckles. And so yes, absolutely, for the adult population, and the two students I have that own the narrow keys, they are both adults, and they're playing into the retirement. And one of them in particular was about to give up the piano. She just said it hurts too much. And so I suggested, she looked for years as she came over to my place for lessons. She looked at my piano with the narrow keys, and she was afraid to touch it. And I said, hey, Ruth, why don't we just have a lesson on the narrow keys just for fun? Well, by the end of the lesson, she says, I have to own some of these. I'm just retired. She was just retiring. She was getting her bonus payout. She says, I need to order this. So it took about a year before she got it in her apartment. But this is 10 years ago, and she plays all the time. She plays 1 to 2 hours a day. She is having a blast. And she reminds me constantly, she said, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have these keys. So it
Thank you so much.
Opened her world.
Thank you. Thank you. Grant?
Grant, you have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Oh, righty.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. So with that, we are going to go into the presentation with our next illustrious guest. And I can't wait, Barbara Lister-Sink. And we will go forward with her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grant. And thank you, Linda, for that eloquent and moving testimonial about your own journey. My journey is a little different. It's both personal and professional. It started professionally. I've spent the last 40 some years of my life developing a means of teaching injury preventive technique, and direct actually the first certificate program in injury preventive technique and the first master's of music and performance and pedagogy at Salem College with an emphasis in injury preventive technique. So it's been my passion and my life's work to help pianists not get injured or to recover from injuries. And since Salem College is a woman's college, although the graduate program is co-ed, I have still dealt with, in the last 35 years, a great deal of women pianists. And I realized as I was going through all of this business of developing a kind of a science-based approach to injury prevention, that you can have the most efficient technique in the world, and Linda, I think, has very well stated that, and of course I'm sure she teaches a beautiful technique, good coordination. You can have efficient muscle use, you can release your muscles, you can not accumulate tension, you can align yourself beautifully, you can sit well, but if your hand is too small, it's still going to be what we call an extension, and it will be your extensor muscles here in the arms. Well, if you want to do that, those of you who are here, if you want to just extend your fingers, abduct them, and put your hand right here on your arm, the top of your forearm, those are your extensors. Those are what are working very hard. They also do this, but they do this. So and not only that, it's going to begin to wear these out, so to speak, if a small-handed pianist has to stretch so much. And not only that, but when we bear load, as we call it, if we're actually putting a lot of force into the key, then there's a lot of load, a lot of force, a lot of load going through joints. And if these little joints, if they're little, and if they also are an extension, or what we call hyperextension, that's a setup. It's a setup for injury. It is wearing them out. It's sort of like walking around on locked knees all the time, or in some kind of really bad postural position. So, and we all know about that with spines nowadays, and Zoom rooms, and computer posture and everything else. So I realized then that no matter how hard I tried, there was a certain group of people with whom I was working, it still wouldn't work. They had great biomechanics, they had efficient muscle use, they had wonderful alignment, they were moving beautifully, non-accumulation of tension, and they still were in trouble. Or we had to change repertory, and that didn't make sense. And that was, I'm going, wait a minute, as one friend of mine said several years ago, he said, Barbara, why do you want to play all that great 19th century Liszt and Ravel and Gaspar Lanois and all that mess? Why don't you just go do some Bach and do a little Schubert and all that? You've got small hands. I nearly blew a gasket. I controlled myself though, and just said, well, he even said, do you want to show off? And I know, Linda, you'll love this. And I controlled myself, and I simply said, no, actually, I really like that music, and it speaks to me personally, so I want to play it. But if you would see, any of you would see my music now, you'd see incredible amounts of notes left out. The great Piatigorsky one time said, some notes I don't play, others I leave out. I love that because I leave out a lot of notes. But I make sure acoustically they can't tell. I use a lot of pedal in Gaspar and Rachmaninoff and all of that. So to get on with that's my professional experience of being very concerned. But then I also had an epiphany when I was down at the Texas Piano. I was doing a master class or workshop, and there was a master class being given by a wonderful Russian pianist to a very small Asian pianist who probably was half his size. And he was asking her, she was doing something like this. Very big Rachmaninoff etude tableau. And he was asking her to get more sound, more sound, more sound. And there she was, and I'll show you how it looked. His hand, when he was playing those octave chords, looked like, this is the smaller keyboard, Linda, you know this one. It looked, his arch looked of an octave looked like that. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous arch. You see that? That's a nice, beautiful arch. That's a perfect alignment for load bearing through the fingers, okay? If you're really directing a lot of force into the key. what she was doing was playing on the modern, the standard keyboard, which we all know and love. And my hand doesn't look like hers does. I'm still with my arthritic thumb now. Like Linda said, with her older students, I have lost my span. So there's certain things that I have to refinger or something unless I play on the small piano. So that's my hand on the standard piano. What her hand looked like when she was trying to imitate him was this. And you can see I'm hyperextending my thumb joints, I'm hyperextending my little finger, and she was trying to get enormous sound. And it's sort of like asking a lady golfer, because I come from a family of athletes, my dad was a great golfer, to do a tournament, really, with the same clubs that men use, and compete with men as they are driving the golf ball 300 yards down the fairway. It doesn't work that way. And as Linda's friend was talking about, the cellist or the professor, good heavens, that's a no-brainer. Nobody else in the music world, except maybe organists, has to do this, has to get used to this enormous instrument vis-a-vis our small hands. So when I saw that, I thought, this is ridiculous. And at about the same time, I met David Steinbuehler and went up to Titusville and met with Linda and had a wonderful time with them and began to play these pianos. And also, Linda, I don't know where you are. You were in Canada. Were you in Ontario?
I was living in Toronto at the time when I met David Steinbuehler and Linda.
Okay. Well, then my father-in-law is in St. Catharines, and I've been going up there. He's 100 years old. I've been going up there for years. And Ridley College, I believe, had a 7/8 or a 5.5 keyboard. And we went over there several times, but we couldn't, no one knew where it was. Then David Steinbuehler let us bring down a 7/8 or a 5.5, which is the smaller one here, a little Walter piano, and then we also got a 6.0. I retrofitted a Steinway with that. And it just, as Carol Leone often has said, it just made people cry. And I just have a few slides, not much, but just a few slides to share with you, if I might do that. I can share screen, right? So I'm going to show you. Okay.
There.
All right, so there it is. Okay, let me just get the presentation. Okay. So, hands too small or keyboards too large? Is it stop pixelating now, I hope?
Yes.
Hi.
So the pianist has a lonely life anyway, but as Linda was saying, we don't need to have pain. I've told my pianists, if we don't have pleasure when we're playing physically, there's something very wrong. It's a highly complex activity. From the viewpoint of physiologists, there is no human activity, he says, that involves all these complex coordinations, integration of so many parts of the brain, than that of nothing surpasses that of a skilled pianist. So we should all pat ourselves on the back. However, for me in my profession, I've seen a critical risk factor, as Linda said, of the ergonomic mismatch between hand size and keyboard size. And they're all the people who have, especially Rhonda Boyle and Linda Booker, and then of course Carol Leone, who's just a ringleader in all this down at Southern Methodist University. She wrote a marvelous article, and I can make some of these available, but it was in Piano Journal, professional journal, that was several years ago. And eloquent. She has worked so indefatigably for this cause, this elephant in the room. There you have it from one study. Males have, pianists have 24% have small hands, 76% have large hands as they defined it. And look at women. Small hands, 87%, large hands, 13%. So there you have the problem in a nutshell. There's me. My hand obviously is in the front, and my wonderful student, David's hand is in the back, and we play the same pieces. And that's what it looks like. So just a few statistics. 87% of females in a 2015 study, and 94% of Asian females had small hands and were injured. And then in 2006, 77% of female pianists had playing-related injuries in Japan. And Boyle et al. Has established that the modern keyboard size is a significant risk factor for female pianists. And then women are, and here's the kicker, women are twice as likely for men to have keyboardist injuries. It's already high enough, the injury rate in the piano world. If you're a serious pianist, you have a 1 in 2 chance of developing a playing-related injury. But if you're a female, that doubles. So we have to compromise, as Linda knows, musicianship, repertory, technique. It all has to be compromised, as Deal and Brenda Riston pointed out eloquently in their book, which I highly recommend. It's Strategies for Small-Handed Pianists. So, and thank goodness for this, for Joe, because as Perez wrote in The Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, the standard piano keyboard doesn't just make it harder for female pianists to match the level of acclaim, it also affects their health. Okay. These are just 2 quotes from my 2 female pianists, and so much of it was related to hand size as well as biomechanics, but so much was hand size. And of course, as you teachers are concerned about your little kids, and if they begin to get really enthusiastic, then they're already setting themselves on a path with the standard size keyboard toward injury if they're not careful. Hypermobility, double jointedness, also that's even worse when it has to do with the standard size piano, because we can reach it. Just because you can reach an octave and a chord with hypermobility doesn't mean you should. It's wearing those joints out. So that's hypermobility. You've all run into that in your teaching studios. That's one form of it there at the DIP joint and the MCP joint to her knuckles. There's a wonderful chart that is put out and is absolutely available on the PASK website, PASK, Pianist for Alternatively Sized Keyboards, where you can actually measure your hand just to see which one of these instruments you really should be playing on for your own health. And then there's another chart that will show you where females and males come in and what size, which zones you would be in. This is very, very helpful. So that's sort of my story. I think I said something very passionately several years ago that I felt it was professionally unethical what had happened with the piano industry. And Joe, you understand this so well. And it's professionally unethical with music schools also and administrators not to get this. Anybody with 1 iota of critical thinking skills can figure this one out. It's absolutely, the playing field is not level at all for small-handed pianists, whether they be male, female, whatever. In fact, Vladimir Ashkenazy is quoted in an article, I'm sorry I don't have it right now, but the citation, but he felt early onset arthritis in his hands, and it stopped his playing career. He's a magnificent pianist, and he attributes that largely to having played the big late 19th century, Rachmaninoff, Scriabin, and recording all that with smaller hands. His hands are smaller relatively, so are Daniel Barenboim's. So I think it's been unethical. I think it's been awful, and I don't know why it's taken so long. Obviously, it's always economics, but I am incredibly happy and delighted, Joe, that you all are doing this, and that we can be a part of this presentation today and begin to educate people to what can be as opposed to what has been.
Thank you so much. And I need to tell you that we appreciate you guys so much for understanding that this is a partnership that is long coming, and we have a tremendous amount of work to do to get where we need to be. But working together, we will get there, and I firmly believe that. I like to attach myself to winners. I think we've done it this time again. Grant, please.
Yes, thank you both. That was so enlightening. I first became aware of this keyboard. It was funny when I was with a now friend of mine, Vladimir Komyukov, who was like 6'8" Russian pianist who can reach a 12th. And it was kind of fun to watch him play for the first time on the small keyboard. And but even he, as well as I, who did it, adjusted really quite quickly. And I was kind of amazed at that. I thought it would take a while to get used to, but hardly at all. So that was very gratifying.
Studies are showing that. Studies are showing that, as Linda pointed out, that it took my pianist, maybe 20 minutes to make an adjustment.
Yeah, that was surprising. But you know, they make small violins, cellos, most instruments come in different sizes, so it only makes sense. And wasn't it Joseph Hoffman?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. He
that had a special keyboard made.
Right, Steinway's made it for him. Mm-hmm.
But not everybody had the luxury or the power to get that done. And thankfully, we here have been doing it. And with your help, it's just great. I can't thank you both enough. So I hope we get to meet someday.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Detroit, please come in, as well as all the folks out there. We pride our store as being a great example of what a store can be, and we strive to even get better. We have a wide range of pianos here, concert and beginning pianos. We have pre-owned and new, some of the best new pianos around. And we have a service staff of technicians that are certified, and we try to make each piano be the best it can be, or custom fit it for the needs of the customers who have special requests. We try to do that, but I welcome you all to come in, and I thank you both.
And to see the two versions of the piano that we have there.
Yes, we have both versions here at the time, aside from many examples of the standard piano. So yes, I hope people come in. And I love showing everybody just the fact that they do exist. And it's funny that I always ask people, do you see anything special about this piano? And it's amazing how many people think of many different things but the keyboard. But then I ask them, well, can you play an octave on it? And then they realize. So we have a lot of fun with it.
Well, speaking of Russians, Grant, it wasn't until the late 19th century, 1880s or so, as Carol has Leonie has pointed out, that Steinway standardized the modern size to suit the Russian, Polish virtuoso men with their 12th span to suit them on tour in America, and it stuck. It really stuck.
Yeah, I never knew what gave
before that. The keyboards were not that large in the 19th century. Chopin and Liszt did not play on an instrument of this width.
Well, thankfully, we have the longer keys now, the European, which is nicer than the American standard from before. But I don't know what's taken so long.
If I might just suggest that when someone first tries the keys, because I've had a lot of teacher meetings in my home, and they can be quite frightened because they're good pianists and they don't want to make a mistake. And so often I say, just play a nice quiet octave, and they often will miss it at the beginning because they just think down to the natural, then they adjust and they go, okay, if that's an octave, can you play a ninth? And then they go to the ninth, and then they go to the 10th, rather than sitting down and right away trying to play a Beethoven sonata or something, and then suddenly reeling in horror and, oh, I can't do this. Just sit down very calmly. It's a very meditative thing. And as Barbara knows all about the body, you just relax your body and just feel how relaxed your hand can be when you are actually playing an octave, a ninth, and maybe a 10th. It's just, that's a great first approach, positive approach. Then everything else kind of, the most reticent teacher I had, oh no, I'm not even gonna try. No. And I know she hates making mistakes, and she has amazing students. And I said, just play an octave, nothing but an octave. Well, within 5 minutes, she was playing Brahms, Opus 116, just whipping through it within 5. She goes, I think I like this. She was so shocked. But if she had first of all sat down and bombed in, or started right with Opus 116 number 1, I think she would have reeled back in horror and said, I've just confirmed this is no good for me. So I just want to say, as teachers and in piano stores, just it's very important that the first experience be something that is receptive to actually.
Thank you. I agree with
that
that. So
octave.
very good.
Well, not only
Yeah.
that, but there's another response that Carol has written about, and I've seen with my own female students, especially the really petite ones. They start playing and they start crying.
Mm.
They start crying because tears of joy, but tears of sadness.
Yes.
That it didn't have to be that way. It did not. The struggles did not have to be that way.
Well, I didn't see my 6'8" friend. He didn't cry.
Well, I think we should, this has been incredible so far. I can't wait to get to the question and answer period to see if anybody has anything they'd like to question or comment the ladies on, or myself about the hardware portion of it. If there are any questions out there, now would be the time to bring them up if you would. Does anyone have any questions?